Hi, I'm Larry Puckett, the DCC guy. Well, today we're back over here at the modules again because I want to show you how you can use Wi-Fi throttles like this TCS UWT100 or even a smartphone like this iPhone right here to control trains on your model railroad using the USB connection provided by an NCE USB circuit board through your computer running DecoderPro. In addition, I'll show you how you can do some programming using DecoderPro right here on the model railroad. And I'll be showing you how to do that using PowerCab through the Aegis system that I showed you how to install a few weeks ago. So let's go ahead and get started. Hit that little red subscribe button, and when the little bell comes up, click on it and click all. The impetus for this video was a comment from a viewer a few weeks ago when I did the one of the videos on the Aegis system. He asked me, how about using Wi-Fi throttles and the USB and DecoderPro on the model railroad? So here we are today taking a look at that, and I'll show you how you can use various throttles, such as the TCS Wi-Fi throttle, the UWT100, or my handy-dandy iPhone to run trains. I'll also show you how you can use DecoderPro to program your locomotives on the model railroad. Now, first I want to point out that about 3 years ago, I did a pair of videos in which I showed how to set up the USB circuit board. And since then, NCE has released an update instruction for that, and I highly recommend that if you have one of these, that you go to their website, the ncedcc.com, and go to their information station and look up or do a search for the PowerCab and the USB circuit board. And you'll be able to read and download the latest information they have, the latest instructions that they have for setting up the USB circuit board. And the latest thing that they said was just, don't set anything up, take all of the jumpers off, and it should work fine. Now, unfortunately, they don't specify whether that is with Windows 11, Windows 10, Windows 7, iMac OS, what. They just say do it. So I don't know for sure how that affects different operating systems, how it interfaces with them, or if it's a result of a firmware upgrade with a newer version of the circuit board, and it might not affect older circuit boards. Unfortunately, they just weren't clear at all, and I looked at I looked this up yesterday, and all it says is take all the jumpers off and give it a try that way. So if that doesn't work, then go back, watch my entire set of videos on how to go about setting this up using the instructions that came with the actual USB circuit board. Okay, so first I want to show you how I've got it set up here on the model railroad. So let's go around there at the end and I'll show you the circuit board, how I've got it set up and wired in to the layout and over to my Windows computer. And I'll also show you the wireless router that I use down here in the layout in order to interface with my various DCC systems. So let's take a look at those right now. Okay, right here you can see we have the circuit board, and I've got it attached to one end of the module. And then right here you can see this is the 6-wire cable that connects to the throttle panel on the fascia of the layout. And then right here we have the USB cable that is connected to my, my Windows computer behind me here. So very straightforward, easy setup. They do provide these holes in the corners of the circuit board so that you can attach it to a board under your layout or whatever. One thing, do not screw it in too tightly because you can crack the board. So you just want it to be able to hang there freely. Now, as far as the Wi-Fi connection, this is just an old D-Link wireless router that I use specifically for the model railroad. It is not connected to the internet, so you don't have any worries about anybody from outside connecting to it and running your trains off the end of the world there or doing other nefarious things for you. So literally, it's just here as the wireless router, the Wi-Fi connection for the Windows computer and for the connection to the layout. And I talked about all of this in the videos that I previously did on setting up the USB port and also using the Wi-Fi throttles. Okay, let's take a look at how to use the Wi-Fi throttles here on the model railroad to operate your locomotives. Now, first off, I'm going to start with the UWT-100. And as I said, I did a specific video on this previously, and I'll put a link to that up here and at the end of the video so that you can go back and look at that, and it'll go into this in a lot more detail. I'm just going to show you how I can use it here to operate locomotives. Okay, let's go ahead and start it up. All I have to do is press any button, and it's going to tell me to press 2 to start, so I'm going to do that. And it's going to start up. It's connected to D-Link already. That's my wireless router. And it came up connected to GWR 1363, which is that locomotive right there behind me. And I can control the whistle right here with this button underneath of the main whistle menu option. So it's very responsive, very quick. I've got the guard whistle. And if I need to, I can switch back and forth between different locomotives. So 1363 is active. If I hit this button right here, it's going to switch to Southern Railway 1573 up there at the top. Can't see that very well. So that allows you to quickly switch back and forth between a couple of different locomotives in the recall stack. Let's go ahead and give it a run up the ladder. And then all I have to do is hit the reverse button and it's going to back up. And it should work just like this with just about any type of Wi-Fi throttle and Wi-Fi interface that you have available to you. Of course, they're limited in the number that work with NCE. With NCE, you've got the NCE Wi-Fi interface board. You've got Wi-Fi tracks, which provides a capability to connect as well to the NCE system. So both of those will work with this system. So that answers the first question. Let me get out the cell phone. Now the first thing you want to do is make sure that you're connected to the wireless router that you're going to be using, and that the computer is also attached to, that is running DecoderPro. And then once that's started, then you can go ahead and open up the WiThrottle app. So let me do that. Now you've got a couple of different options depending on which kind of phone you're using. With the Apple system, I'm going to be using the WiThrottle app, and you can get that at the App Store. If you're using an Android phone, there are other ones. I believe it's called Engine Driver, and I think there actually might be a WiThrottle app for the Android phones as well. So I'm just going to tap on that to get it started. And let's go ahead and select this locomotive right here. And I'm going to hit set, and that should bring it up. And we should be ready to go now. So that's how quick and easy it is once it's set up. And I went over the setup routine in the earlier video on using Wi-Fi throttles. So you do need to basically set up your phone and make the connection to your Wi-Fi router. You also have to make sure that DecoderPro is running before you open up the app, and that the WiThrottle capability is activated within DecoderPro. And then it should come up every time you use it and connect automatically, like it did for me just a minute ago. So let's go ahead and run some trains. Let me bring up the throttle, and let's see, hear the whistle. I can turn the cylinder cocks on. Hopefully you can hear that. Okay, and then let me make sure I've got him a route so he can come out. And then right here at the end of my thumb is a slide bar that you can use to control the throttle. So I'm going to open up that, and we'll move him forward. There's a reverse, idle, and a forward, so I just hit the reverse, and he's coming back up the ladder. And I'll bring him to a stop there. Put him back into forward, and we can run him forward just a touch. I will say that it does take a little bit longer to get used to controlling a locomotive using this slide interface without any kind of direct feedback. I do like the direct feedback using the handheld throttles like the TCS and various other Wi-Fi throttles available. Okay, so that shows you how you go about controlling a locomotive using a Wi-Fi throttle. So the next thing I want to show you is programming using DecoderPro. Now for this, I have this locomotive right here, 5775, set up here on this track. And we're going to go ahead and do some programming on the main. And the reason I'm going to do programming on the main is because, for various reasons that I'm not completely clear of, service mode programming is not working with the PowerCab through DecoderPro at this point. It's not a problem to use the PowerCab on the programming track that I showed you how to install, I believe, in a couple of videos ago. And that works great like you would expect. When it came to trying to use service mode programming through DecoderPro, for some reason, I could not get it to work. And at this point, we're not sure if it's because of the way that the PowerCab interacts with the wiring in the Aegis system, that it's not set up in order to be able to do what I'm trying to do. Now, they did tell me at DCC Concepts that they are developing their own USB interface that will take care of this problem in the future. But for right now, that means that you can do your basic service mode programming using the PowerCab itself, and then switch over and use programming on the main with DecoderPro to make all the changes that you want to make over there. So what I want to do for you right now is show you how to use DecoderPro for programming on the main. So for that, I'm going to bring up my Windows computer, and we'll make some changes to this locomotive. Okay, let's take a look at DecoderPro, and I've got it running here on my my old Dell laptop. And you can see right here, I've got the WiThrottle interface activated. And that's going to give me a heads up for every throttle that is connected. Let me open up the WiThrottle app. Now, one thing you want to check, make sure that the system is connected. So right here you can see that ops mode programming is online, and it says service mode is online. Although really, as I said earlier, that's not going to work. Now, once that's set up, and the system has to be powered up for that to be true, then we'll go ahead and select Southern Railway 1573. We're going to do programming on the main, as I said, and hit program. Now at this point, you can look at the roster entry, but let's go ahead and click into basic and change. This is where you would change the address. I've already got that set up, as you can see. All the other settings for CV29 would be in here. You can select the long or the short address, the normal or reverse direction of travel, 128 versus 14 speed steps, and whether or not you're going to use the NMRA DCC digital only, or you're going to use DC conversion. And remember, always turn DC conversion off. And the reason for that is, if you get power surges on your layout as a result of a short circuit or some other kind of occurrence, if you have DC conversion turned on, your decoder can become confused, think that it's running off of DC, and give the full 14 volts or however many volts are on your track to the motor. And your locomotive is going to take off. And it's not going to stop until it hits the ground or the floor. So if you have DC conversion turned off, that will not happen. So always set it up this way. You can always go back and change CV29 so that you can have DC conversion if you want to run it on a friend's layout or on the club layout, anything like that. Okay, so that's what you would do here. And that's typically what I do in service mode programming using the PowerCab handheld throttle. And then once I'm done making these changes with the PowerCab, then I go back and I might do everything else using programming on the main, because it allows me to check the volumes and actually run the locomotive a little bit, as opposed to just trying to do everything within service mode programming using the PowerCab throttle. So I find that that's my typical way when I install a new decoder. First, change the address and CV29 using the PowerCab handheld, and then I'll switch over to programming on the main and do the rest of it. So let's look, for example, at the sound levels. So here, there's a lot of things you can change. Let's manipulate the master volume. I've got it set kind of low because I don't want to blow out the speaker. But as you notice, it changes from yellow to orange when you make a change here. And we can go in here, we can change the whistle volume, boost that a little bit, all these other factors that can be changed. There was something else, let's see here. I'm going to increase the air pump volume a little bit, and then go down here to the bottom and hit Write Changes on the Sheet. Now, you can do write the full sheet, but I'd recommend against that because it takes a lot longer to write all of these various values. Whereas if you hit Write Changes on the Sheet, it's only going to change the values of those three that you see right there. And as it goes through, it runs through and shows you that they've been changed, and you're done. That's all there is to it. Now, of course, the limitation with programming on the main is that you cannot read back the values and find out what the settings in the CVs already are. So that is one limitation. Now, another thing that you probably should be aware of is the equalizer setting. So I've got it set here for a micro speaker, under 1 inch, because I'm using a sugar cube speaker. So when you're using a different size speaker, you want to set this value. You can set it for different sizes of them. And the settings underneath of it here are then optimized for whatever size speaker you decide to use. Now, of course, you can go through each one of these settings here on the equalizer and change these, customize it any way you want. But I have found that the default settings here, when you select a certain size speaker, work very, very well. And it's important to change that because it does matter. Then another thing here is ASC, which is Automatic Sound Control. And that allows you to set up things like the automatic bell, which means that the bell on an American steam locomotive would sound every time you change direction, every time you blow the horn or the whistle, and things like that. So that kind of thing tends to drive me and other operators crazy. So I don't activate that. I do have the automatic brace squeal enabled, and that simply means that when you change a throttle setting fairly quickly, then the decoder is going to interpret that as you're applying the brakes and slowing down. So that will automatically set off the brake squeal, which is a great feature to have, and I like using that. Another thing with steam locomotives is the cylinder cocks. And the cylinder cocks are opened when a locomotive is first starting up and has been sitting a few minutes, because steam will condense into water inside the cylinders, and if you do not blow out that liquid water, you could blow a seal. So the first thing an engineer does is he opens up the cylinder cocks and blows steam out of the cylinders. And you can see that in videos where steam suddenly comes flushing out of the cylinders. That's why they're doing that. And then after they get running just a few seconds, then they will start to close those cylinders and shut off the steam leakage once all the water has been blown out and it's safe. And you can set the decoder up, in this case it's the soundtracks, so that the opening and closing of the cylinder cocks is automatic. Unfortunately, that is a pain in the neck to use because on the real thing, they don't always do that. The engineer knows how long a locomotive can sit without building up sufficient water condensate inside the steam cylinders. And so if they go past that time, then they will open up the drain cocks. Otherwise, they might not. And so if you're doing a lot of back and forth switching or shunting, then you don't want those cylinder cocks going off every time you stop and start the locomotive. So that's, the rationale behind that. And so I leave it turned off and let the engineers determine when they want to start and stop the cylinder cocks. So down here are settings that you can then use. So this would be the auto bell on set point, and it tells you what it does here. There's the auto bell on time, how long it rings when it's automatically turned on, and then here the cylinder cocks on time, and you can set that up for 5-10 seconds for it to stay on and then shut off. And then here's the brake squeal sensitivity, and that means that for a specific negative change in the throttle setting, it's going to squeal the brakes. And by changing this value, you can control that feature, how big of a change in the throttle before the brakes actually come on. So I find this to be a very useful page for soundtracks and Soundtrack Tsunami and Economy decoders. And of course, with every type of decoder that you use, these options and settings are going to be different. So you just have to get used to that. Okay, and again, then you would write any changes on the sheet. Finally, you have the option, before you get out, of saving the changes you've made, or if you decide to go ahead and close, it's going to ask you, do you want to save them? So you could save and close, or you can just close. And that's it. So that's how you use DecoderPro for programming on the main with the PowerCab Aegis combination. So give that a try with your setup and with your model railroad, and let me know in the comments how it works for you. Well, that's a wrap for today's video. Now, as I've said several times in this video, and I'm going to keep repeating it because I know people do skip around in the videos. So I did do 2 videos, and I'll be putting a link on the end page of this video to those previous videos that I have done on setting up the USB circuit board and setting up Wi-Fi throttles to use with your PowerCab. So that should give you enough information and enough details on how to go about setting up the USB circuit board and also how to use Wi-Fi throttles with the PowerCab. So that's about it. Have a great weekend. Have a great week. And I'll see you here next week with another video from the DCC Guy. Bye now.